I wasn't supposed to be in the forest that night. The patrol route was routine, one I could have walked blindfolded, but something in the air felt different. The twin moons had not yet risen, and the trees stood like dark pillars, their roots curling over the soil like sleeping serpents. My boots crunched softly against the moss, the only sound besides my own breathing. That's when I heard it, the cry. It was sharp, filled with terror, not human yet not entirely alien either. Instinct dragged me toward it before thought could argue. When I broke through the underbrush, I froze. A young alien girl, her skin faintly silver under the dim starlight, stood trembling with her back to a tree. Before her, a predator the size of a horse crouched low, its jaws dripping with saliva, eyes glowing with predatory hunger. Its teeth were serrated, designed to rip flesh from bone, and it was ready to strike. The girl could barely move, her body paralyzed in fear. I didn't weigh my options. Training, morality, something primal in me decided. I ran forward. The beast lunged, and I shoved myself between it and the girl. Pain like fire exploded through me as its fangs sank deep into my arm. The sound of bones cracking echoed in my ears, but adrenaline drowned everything else. With my free hand, I drew my blade and drove it upward into the beast's eye. It shrieked, thrashing violently, and I stabbed again and again until it collapsed beside me, its weight shaking the ground. I staggered, clutching my ruined arm, blood dripping freely. The girl rushed to me, her alien eyes wide, tears streaking down her face. She whispered something I barely understood, "Savior." Moments later, villagers arrived, their voices raised in shock, their gazes locking onto me standing over the beast's corpse. In that moment, everything changed. They carried me into the village on a litter woven from branches, my arm wrapped in rough cloth that was already soaked through. The girl, Kaylee, refused to leave my side, her small hand clutching mine as if letting go would undo what had happened. The villagers moved around me in a strange mixture of awe and suspicion, their large eyes glinting in the firelight. Some touched the corpse of the beast that had been dragged behind us, whispering prayers. Others pointed at me, speaking words too fast for me to catch, but their tones told me enough. I had done something no human was supposed to do. The air smelled of smoke and herbs as they brought me into their central hall, a vast hut supported by carved pillars, each etched with stories of their ancestors. I was laid on a platform of woven reeds, and the room grew silent. Then he entered. The chief. He towered above the others, his horns etched with scars that glowed faintly in the fire's light, his cloak stitched from the hides of countless slain beasts. Power radiated from him in every step. His golden eyes settled on me, unblinking, piercing straight through my skin as though he could see the venom burning in my veins. He spoke slowly, his deep voice reverberating through the hall. The words were foreign, but their meaning was clear. I had taken the beast's bite and lived. I had protected one of theirs. His hand pressed against my wound, and a strange energy pulsed from his palm into my blood. My pain dulled, replaced by a heavy heat that spread through my body. He leaned closer, his face grim, his words deliberate in broken human tongue, "You are mine now." The fever came quickly, creeping over me like a suffocating blanket. By the second night, I could barely tell where the dream ended and reality began. My arm pulsed with fire, veins burning as if molten metal had replaced my blood. I saw the beast's jaws again and again, closing around me, dragging me down into darkness. Each time I thought I'd drown in that memory, I'd wake slick with sweat, my body trembling. Kaylee was always there. Her silver-hued skin glistened with the glow of the fire as she wiped my forehead with a damp cloth, whispering softly in her language. I didn't understand the words, but the tone, gentle, soothing, desperate, kept me tethered. She fed me thin broth, guiding the bowl to my lips when my hands shook too much to hold it. Her voice was the single thread that pulled me back from the edge. But the strangest presence was the chief. He visited each night, his massive frame crouched beside my bed, his eyes like molten gold reflecting the flames. He brought with him a carved stone, dark and veined with glowing lines. He pressed it to my wound, chanting words that seemed to vibrate the very air. The stone grew hot, pulsing in rhythm with my heart. I should have been terrified, but some part of me felt anchored by his power, as if he alone was keeping the venom from tearing me apart. Days blurred together. Sometimes I felt like my body was not my own, my senses stretching beyond their limits. Sounds were sharper, colors brighter, my heart beat louder than thunder in my ears. When I finally woke fully, the fever broken, I stared at my arm in horror. My veins glowed faintly beneath the skin, shimmering like liquid light. The bite hadn't killed me. It had remade me. Learning to walk again felt like waking inside a body that wasn't mine. Every step was heavier, yet lighter, as though the ground resisted and yielded all at once. My senses betrayed me. I could hear conversations across the village, smell the tang of metal from a blacksmith's forge half a mile away, even feel the rhythm of footsteps through the soil. The villagers noticed too. When I passed, their eyes followed me. Some lowered their heads in reverence, others touched their foreheads as though warding off a spirit. To them, I wasn't human anymore, I was something else. Kaylee was the only one who treated me as before. She smiled when she saw me, tugged at my good arm, and laughed when I stumbled like a newborn learning balance. Her laugh, high and nervous, reminded me of home, of little sisters I hadn't seen in years. But every moment of peace with her was overshadowed by the chief's gaze. He watched from the edges of gatherings, his golden eyes heavy with meaning. It wasn't admiration. It was possession. The truth came during the council gathering. Fire roared high in the pit, elders seated in a wide circle, their voices weaving into a ritual chant. The chief rose, towering above them all, and declared with thunder in his voice that the human who bore the beast's bite no longer walked alone. He was claimed. The words hit me like chains. I stepped forward, trying to speak, to say I didn't belong here, that I wasn't theirs. But my voice was swallowed by the roar of the crowd, the chant rising in unison, the rhythm of their belief crushing my protest. In that moment, I understood. To them, I was no longer a guest or even a savior. I was bound, blood and soul, to their tribe. And the chief would not let me go. The summons came at dusk. A runner brought the message, his eyes wide as he told me the chief required my presence at the central fire. I followed in silence, every step heavy with dread. By the time I arrived, the entire village had gathered in a great circle. Drums thundered, shaking the air, and warriors pounded their chests in rhythm. Torches blazed, their smoke rising to the twin moons above. The chief stood at the center, waiting. His voice cut through the noise like a blade. "You saved one life," he said, his words slow and deliberate so I could understand. "Now you prove you can save us all." Chains rattled. The crowd parted, and a beast unlike any I had seen was dragged into the circle. Its body was plated with bone, its jaws big enough to crush stone, its roar shaking the ground beneath my feet. Even restrained, it thrashed with terrifying strength. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had no armor, no plan, only the weapon the chief placed into my hands, a bone spear. The chain snapped, and the creature charged. I moved without thought, instincts fueled by the venom coursing through my blood. My body was faster, stronger, sharper than it had ever been. I dodged by inches, the beast's jaws snapping where I had stood a heartbeat before. Each strike of its claws sent sparks from the stone floor. The fight was a blur of terror and fury. I struck, rolled, struck again, the crowd's chants driving me forward. At last, with a desperate cry, I drove the spear deep into its throat. Hot blood sprayed, hissing against the fire. The beast collapsed, thrashing once before going still. Silence held for a single breath. Then the entire village erupted in thunderous cries of one word that shook me to my core, *chosen. That night, after the trial, the village celebrated as though the stars themselves had descended. Fires burned high, drums echoed into the mountains, and warriors painted their faces with the beast's blood in my honor. Children danced around me, chanting *chosen*, their eyes wide with awe. Food and drink were pushed into my hands, though my stomach twisted too much to accept. Kaylee stayed close, her smile proud, though her eyes carried a shadow of fear I couldn't place. When the fires dimmed and most had fallen into exhausted sleep, the chief came to me. He didn't arrive with guards or ceremony, he didn't need to. His presence alone was enough to silence the night. He stood over me, golden eyes burning, and spoke in a low, deliberate voice. "You are not like them anymore. The bite has marked you. You are mine." I rose to my feet, anger tightening my chest. I belong to no one. The chief only smiled, the kind of smile a hunter wears when the prey thinks it still has room to run. His hand pressed against my shoulder, heavy as stone. "The venom lives in you. Without me, it will consume you. With me, you will rise above all men." The words sank deep, colder than the night air. I wanted to deny him, to shout that I was still human, still my own. But my veins pulsed with unnatural heat, the faint glow under my skin betraying the truth. He wasn't wrong, I was changing. Kaylee appeared from the shadows, her voice trembling as she begged me not to accept his claim. "He will use you," she whispered. "You will not belong to yourself anymore." I looked between her pleading eyes and the chief's unblinking stare. My fate was no longer my own. The days that followed blurred into a haze of celebration and unease. The tribe treated me as something sacred, half man, half legend. Children touched my glowing veins with awe, warriors clasped my shoulders with reverence, and elders whispered prayers in my presence. They no longer looked at me as an outsider. To them, I was proof of their god's favor, a living weapon forged in blood and fire. At the feasts, the chief stood proudly beside me, proclaiming before all that the human had been remade, that I would stand as their protector against the beasts and whatever enemies lay beyond the mountains. His words thundered through the crowd, and they cheered as though the stars themselves had agreed. Yet beneath the roar of approval, I felt the weight of invisible chains. Each cry of asterisk chosen asterisk pulled me further from who I once was. At night, when the noise faded, I sat alone by the river. The water reflected a stranger's face back at me. My veins pulsed with faint light, my eyes sharper, my heart beat steady and powerful like a drum of war. I lifted my hand and watched the glow spread under my skin, equal parts beautiful and terrifying. Kaylee often found me there. She would sit quietly at my side, her voice soft as she told me I had already given too much. "You saved me," she whispered. "That should have been enough." But even as she spoke, her gaze lingered on my changed form, torn between gratitude and fear. And always, in the back of my mind, the chief's words echoed, "Asterisk, you are mine now. Not man, not beast. Something greater. Asterisk." I stared into the black water, the reflection of my glowing veins rippling. Maybe he was right. Maybe this was the beginning of something I couldn't stop.